evening and welcome to the Laughing Monkey Music Show. Tonight we have on Paige Hamilton, the star and main player of Helmet and many other things. How you doing tonight, man?
I'm okay. How are you?
I want to thank you. I'm doing great. I'm glad you could come on. I've been waiting for this to see you. You had some stuff. You got a lot of stuff going on. We're going to talk about the end. You're a machine, really. So I appreciate you taking time to do these little podcast interviews because I know you have a lot to do.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
So what's really great about you is, like a brief intro. We'll go over a few things earlier on and some of your other stuff because people that aren't aware of you, I want to make aware of and a little bit of your history. And I want to kind of talk cross pollination about some of the music stuff you do because it's kind of really fantastic to me.
Cool.
What's really great with you is, when I first heard you and you guys was like really heavy and it was sort of alternative time. So I don't even know. To me, you sound like a kind of like a heavy metal band at the time, but it was really alternative. And you were allowed to tour. You toured with everybody, all different types, from Pantera to all different alternative bands, which is kind of cool. At that time, how were you considering yourself as a style? Did you guys have an idea of what genre of music you were?
We didn't really think about it like that. I think it was interesting when we started going around selling our 7-inches. The first thing we released was Born Annoying, and the B-side was Rumble on AmRep, and Tom Hazelmeyer over at AmRep. Our payment was, I think he gave us 500 7-inches, and it's like, there you go, now sell them. And so we'd go door to door in New York and sell them, and guys would put it on and be like, whoa, this is really cool. It's like industrial metal. And then I'm just like, this is like hardcore, but not. It's like, and I was like, cool, whatever you guys want to call it is fine by us. And we had we had the Grammy nomination, and we were Grammy nominated for metal performance. And then we all know the big debacle with Metallica and Jethro Tull, that era. So it's like, Jethro Tull's not metal. I'm like, they're a hard rock band,
I'll be honest with you. I love Metallica, but I love Jethro Tull. So
yeah, Jethro Tull was my first concert in 1976.
See, so I have like 12, 18 albums by them on vinyl. So I love to.
Incredible. Yeah, they were incredible. It was, they were a great band. But so then we were called, I think when we did a record in, I want to say 2000, the years are, would have been 2006, 7, 8, something like that. They were like, you guys are post-hardcore. And I'm like, okay, whatever you want to call it. And
that's good. I was curious what you had heard, because I don't do the genre. To me, everybody that's still around right now is like a legacy band, meaning you have a legacy that's always going to be there. It means something. And here's something I think, that like a band has their, like, not an apex, but like the big time where everyone loves your certain albums. And I've heard you talk about this before. And then your better albums, you may say, like your last one, you probably you think is your best, but I think it's because people gravitate to you at a certain age, in a younger age, their 18s, 20s, and that's their music is their world. Now there's a bunch of us like you and I, and all different levels of musicians and music lovers, and that still go, nope, I'm still listening to music. Music is always going to be my life. But a big hunk of that really hold on to it, that, kind of weave in and out. It's for them. Those are their times, and they don't know nothing else for you or any other band. So like, that's the timestamp for you. Like, he's doing another album. I'm like, dude, he's done like 4 other albums, and he's done like orchestras. And I mean, so they forget, like, time stands still for them. And the labels are there for like genre. And this, to me, who you guys reminded me of, and not so much in sound, but in inventive song structure and not giving a care. To me, it was like if Fugazi decided they want to become heavy metal.
Mm-hmm.
To me, in that attitude where you guys had your own song structure, you guys did your own thing, and you used the bass a lot. It had its own distinct sound, which they really loved about that. With you guys, because it's always been a thing. Has that always been a conscious thing with you? Well, I'm actually talking about that.
The
bass sound has always kind of been pretty...
what I preach and teach when I'm flying to Boise to produce an album next week, and what I talk to bands, and I've been remote producing since the pandemic hit. I did a band in Toulouse, France, a band in Melbourne, Australia, Chicago, Brooklyn, this Boise band, and you have to look at the parts of a rock band as like a little mini orchestra. It's orchestration, right? So every element, and that means that's not drum kit, bass, 2 guitars. It's the drum kit consists of a hi-hat, maybe 2, floor tom, 2 rack toms, a kick drum, some cymbals. So it's the whole kit. Those are all separate instruments. The bass, you have a couple of options. You can go like distorted, you think for yourself, Beatles distorted fuzz pedal bass, or you can go a cleaner bass or a full bass. And I did kind of view the bass and the guitar as separate but cohesive elements. And so the sound was incredibly important, because if you're going to double parts, meaning I've got a riff and the bass player's in sync with the guitar, the sounds have to work together. So you don't want, like, a lot of guys and girls, where musicians focus so much on, like, we're going to get a kick and a snare sound, and then the bass is kind of this not ignored, but I think bass is a hard instrument to make sound great, and we were lucky with Henry that he was he was a musician. He wasn't just a bass player, and I think that's the case with Stanier as well. He was a songwriting, he was a musician. So he had an orchestral or an arrangement, an approach to playing drums that was arrangement oriented, and that was why the band, our songs were cohesive and, like progressive. I mean, I remember people coming to me and, Mike Patton, our example, and just like, God, he's like, it's so weird. I heard you guys, and it was this brand new thing. And then I watched you every night when you toured with us, and it was like, it was really clear. It really made sense. It wasn't like rocket science. They go, no, it's just being, I mean, it's why I love ZZ Top and AC/DC. I was like, well, they're just blues rock bands. I'm like, how come nobody can play like that? Nobody. Like, you cover an AC/DC song and you sound lame. It's just lame, because that was perfect. That every element was perfect in the music, and that to me was something. And the vocal thing came about because I was early on. I remember in everybody talking about songwriter, singer-songwriter, songwriter, and I was like, you know what? I want to be the anti-songwriter. It's so pretentious. Like, I'm going to write a song that's going to be meaningful, and I'm like, I'm going to collect a series of stream of conscious thoughts and images. And I'm going to create something that's completely different. And, it worked pretty well. Sometimes I failed, and I'd be like, what exactly was I thinking about there, singing about? But that's okay. I think you have to to do something interesting, you have to put the lab coat on a little bit and take some chances and not worry. We were never, as we just discussed a minute ago, we were never concerned with the genre or with what people thought. Are they going to identify with this or not? I'm like, I don't know. It's not my problem. It's like, we love music. I love Marvin Gaye. I love Beethoven. I love Charlie Parker. I love Bob Marley, and so those elements are something that we absorb as a singer and a writer and a guitarist. And it's in some way, if you're, not unconscious, it'll seep into your music, I think, in a positive way, so.
I can hear that I can hear your jazz influence as far as every instrument has its own little journey.
Yeah.
Like in jazz that I can hear but like even the drums. So you're saying before, like the drums, the snap and the snare, that's a helmet sound. You guys have a certain drum sound, no matter who's drumming for you.
Mm-hmm.
That I think you produce. You kind of lock down now.
I wrote with that in mind, like the drums as a feature instrument. Like
right.
To me, it was that's why I love Stanier. I heard him and I go, this guy has the feel and the the feel and the creativity, and he could play fast tempos, and it was assertive, aggressive, whatever you want to call it. I knew I could write cool stuff with him in mind, and he got it. He was, I don't know how he figured some of this stuff out, because I just feel like, well, it turns around every, if I'm in 5 and you got to stay in 4, and then so it's going to turn around here and you got to get back to 1 right here. And, but that's their problem. That's their job.
But that's one of the things when people listen to you guys, it does seem not as complex when you really pull back, unless you're a musician, you really listen to, and you play guitar, you play an instrument. It's so different.
It's hard. Yeah. It's hard music to play.
Right. Because they don't get it. It feels like it's just dunk, 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 dunk. And it's like, it's no.
Supposed to.
The timing is different. The timing is like ridiculous. And it's simple, smart, but it's not easy.
I've told this story before. T.M. Stevens, the great bassist who played with the Pretenders, and before that with Miles and with James Brown, this amazing musician. He came on the bus, and we were at Asbury Park at Stone Pony, and he came on the bus. He's like, man, you guys are just it's mind blowing. He's like, it's spinach. It's like a big bowl of ice cream helmet. You dig in and there's spinach inside. It's like, because it feels good. It's tasty, yum. It's like, oh, there's something in here that's healthy and good for me. It's and I just thought that was such a great description of what we do. And I've heard different things from, other musicians like Danny Korchmar and Steve Jordan, who I really admire, like top of their, Steve Jordan's phenomenal drummer and bassist, and Cooch is, and has his own guitar sound. Like you dial a setting on any guitar preamp you buy, and it's like, Cooch or whatever. It's like his sound, and he produced, Henley and Billy Joel and all these people, and that kind of admiration and that kind of support for me meant a lot. You know what I mean? I felt, because I grew up listening to those records and reading their names on the backs of records, and it wasn't my goal, but I feel like I knew the process that I knew what went into it, and that it was musical and came from people say, I don't hear jazz. One guy, I said, a bartender client, when I was bartending in New York, he said, what do you guys like? I said, I don't know, man. It's hard rock. I said, my favorite band is AC/DC. And he came to see us. He goes, you guys don't sound anything like AC/DC. I'm like, good, because we don't need another AC/DC. They're perfect.
Thank you. But I say that all the time to people.
Yeah.
It's like, where do you have that band?
Yeah, exactly. But I'll say, well, look at the harmonic, vocabulary of Helmet. There are chords that nobody in a rock band nobody in a band ever used before. Major 7 sharp 11 with a 13. All it is it looks like this, and it's an open E string, and then I've got a C sharp and F sharp, and then a power chord on the bottom. But nobody ever thought of that before, and nobody ever used those voice things. And to me, things that I applied from jazz were common tone. So that's like a pedal point, meaning I can play this note and I can play 4 chords that change, and that note's still like, it hinges around that note. I can do extensions of chords, meaning I can go from, here's a triad, da ba 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 da da, and I can add notes above that. That's a jazz thing, and jazz is about the feel and swing. And Helmet sway. Steve Jordan, one of the things he said, man, is you guys swing so hard. He goes, he said, you're the only heavy band that I've heard that grooves and swings, because there was a straight 8th feel in a lot of metal music, and there are a lot. I think that stuff swings in a different way, much of it. But I get what he was saying, and I think that is informed by or influenced by jazz. It's like the harmonic concepts, the approach to it. Also, my solos. Unless it's a part that I've written, like I Care solo, that's a melodic thing with some feedback. I'm improvising. I'm not playing a collection of hot rock licks, because I don't have them. I don't have a bunch of hot rock licks. I'm using a mode, say Dorian, and then pentatonics that move on the tritone. I'm doing things that I've horsed around with in jazz, and I'm improvising. I'm letting it happen every night differently. You know what I mean? It doesn't mean I won't repeat myself, because I will.
But you've added words to your own musical vocabulary by doing that. Yeah, you've kind of created it.
Yeah, it's Tommy Victor from Prong, who's a friend. We toured together. He said, "Man, I've been trying to hit my solos like you, trying to get that, like, because it has this free, exciting, intense feeling. Like there's improv going on, and there's feedback, and then there's diminished scale things coming out, and I go, I'm just winging it, man. I'm just going. I'm putting like I'm that guy that used to roller skate. I think it was Frank Zappa. People said Frank Zappa's roller skating on the Strand in Venice Beach. It's like, I'm like that guy. Put the lab coat and the roller skates on, and try not to crash. You know what I mean? So
that's pretty good. I know, and I always like to think about the songwriting process. And with you, and it's interesting is like, because you have some jazz stuff up too, and you have the quintet you have a little, you play out, you have a lot of different projects you do.
Yeah.
How did you, so was it when you started playing, you're doing jazz, but you're also, I know you like Steely Dan, I do too, but you also were listening to like Zeppelin, like I do, I like similar bands, but like you combined them in a way, but you like took jazz and made it heavy. Like, how did you come to that point? It's very interesting how you meshed it, because I can't think of a time I've heard
I got interested in becoming a guitarist because of Led Zeppelin, right? I listened to 2 Led Zeppelin albums every single day as a teenager, and there were only, like, I can't remember how many albums at the time, 7 or 8 albums. but I'd be like Led Zeppelin 2 and Presence. And tomorrow I'm going to do the live album, and that's a double record. So I'd listen to that whole thing beginning to end. And that'd be like, you know, the Houses of the Holy and, you know, Led Zeppelin 1 or whatever. And I just was obsessed with them. And because of them, this blues thing came out. Willie Dixon. Well, who's this guy? I got to check this Willie Dixon guy out. The blues. So I started exploring the blues. Then I got a guitar teacher who wouldn't teach me Stairway to Heaven. So I fired him and got a new guy. And this guy said, do you like jazz? And I'm like, yeah, my mom listens to that, you know? And so I got a George Benson album, and I was like listening to the guitar. I'm like, what is that? What is he doing? How the hell does he do that? And I just became fascinated by it. And then I was in college, and my parents, you know, was like, you're going to college, whatever. So they were splitting it with me until I flunked out. As a pre-med major. And so I came home, and my dad said, what are you going to do? I'm not going to help you out anymore. You're academic probation, whatever. I said, I'm going to go to Lane Community College. I'm going to study music. And his exact words to me were, bullshit. And and in my mind right then, I was like, watch. And I did. I went to Lane Community College. I learned to read, read music, and took theory and got straight A's from there on. I auditioned at Oregon on classical and jazz guitar, got in on both. And I just became obsessed. And so I didn't forget about Led Zeppelin, but it was like I had done that from the age of 14 to 17. Like just, you know, it was AC/DC, Zepp. I love Sabbath, but and I got to New York. I decided I really wanted to live in New York because I was always reading about, Minton's Playhouse, Charlie Parker, Thelonious Monk, Coltrane, Miles. Everybody came from North Carolina, Philly, St. Louis, Miles, all over the place. And New York was the epicenter. There's got to be something there. I have to be there. And I went there, I auditioned for Manhattan School of Music and got in. And I got a little small scholarship and then a work study job to mop the stage every morning at like 6 a.m. And it was great. It was amazing. And I continued studying jazz, and I was the youngest guy in the program. And I had all these super pro, amazing musicians like Dave Berger and Steve Ture, these incredible, like world-class jazz musician guys that were playing with Benny Golson or Stan Kenton or whatever. And then me, I was like, hey, yeah, I'm the dumbass from Oregon. And, but I saw that I had a knack for composition because I was always trying to push the boundaries. I was always trying to do different things. And I was learning these Jim Hall chords and these things. And then I decided, I graduated. I'm like, I got to do something. So I started auditioning, looking in the Village Voice, auditioning for every band I could find. Found this band of Susan's band. That's really cool. They said, check out this Gang of Four band. And I go, that's really cool. Then I started exploring that era of music, and I found Killing Joke. I found Wire. We toured with Wire. I found the Buzzcocks. I found That Petrol Emotion. I found all this amazing. I was like, oh my God, rock guitar is not dead. Because to me, the stuff that came after Zepp and AC/DC and everything was too soft. I didn't like Boston Journey or Foreigner. They're amazing players and songwriters. It just, something didn't connect with me. I don't know what it was. It felt really sterile in some weird way, or contrived, I guess. And I don't mean to speak, ill of those, because they're incredible. Steve Lukather and Toto, he's a phenomenal musician. That whole band are phenomenal, but it's just, I don't know. I wanted something a little dirtier, a little nastier and heavier and stuff. And I heard Sonic Youth. We played with them in Australia. I love the noise.
Tour?
I love the noise. That would have been was it the first or second time we were in Australia? 93. I believe it was the tour that we just released that show from. The first time we were down there, and they had that great song, Teresa's Sound World. What album is that? It's after Daydream Nation, not Goo.
There's one more after that one, because I saw them on Goo at the Masquerade in Atlanta.
Yeah,
and I was thinking around 91, I think. I think I could be wrong.
That's now. I can see the cover. So Daydream Nation, I love that, and then the one after that, in between Goo and Daydream Nation, it had Teresa's Sound World, and that song was just magical. And I just remember sitting on the side of the stage and just like, wow, this is, because they had this thing that was improvisational, but based in it with a different language, different vocabulary, and
dirty,
using feedback and detuned guitars, and it could be a train wreck at times. You're like, that didn't quite work, but it could also just be transcendent. And to me, that was exciting. I want something that's taking more chances, and I think that's why it really attracted me.
I just real quickly, it's either, was it Dirt? It wasn't Dirt, right? I mean, it wasn't. Was it the Whitey album?
I think it was Dirt. I think you're right, Dirt.
Because
I think it's the album with Cool Thing.
Cool Thing was on. Cool Thing was Goo.
Goo.
Goo, yeah.
Okay. It had to be
for Karen and stuff. Yeah, I had to Google it too because the songworms would bother me for like a day. I'd be like, oh,
yeah, yeah. It's gonna. I gotta. I'm gonna Teresa's sound. World. It's that album. I really. See it.
Well, because the Goo came out and then Dirt, so they were probably still, the Goo was their biggest album, like commercially, I think. So
yeah,
they're probably doing a lot of songs off of Goo. Dirt tour, you know what I mean? So it could be confusing at that point.
Yeah, it was cool. It was great. But I think what, like, and there were other bands downtown, Rat R and Live Skull and stuff, and there was a similar kind of excitement for me, but there was also a lack of like funkiness and sort of I liked the hardcore aggression, but not male aggression for aggression's sake, kind of, which I felt like hardcore got a little bit like that, and where it was like, and I'm like, nah, that's not. I'm more like John Coltrane aggression. It's passion. It's a need to express something that I can express through no other medium, other than the music of Helmet and
like
Helmet
power, but not a threat to your audience.
Exactly. It's like, yes, there's anger there, but it's not about the anger only. It's about, like trying to communicate. And like I read about Coltrane, like no one could sit in the room with Coltrane playing and ignore him. And I'm like, I like that because it was so powerful and so intense and so loud, So I know some people would tease us, Julie Kafritz, who was in a band called STP, not Stone Temple Pilots, but STP back in the day in New York. And she's like, Helmut's, you guys are just playing, what did she say? Rush songs with bigger amps or something. I'm like, yeah, no. It's just, it's, people always want to take a shot at you, and it's like, she was a friend and funny about it. Just busting our nuts. But yeah. So yeah,
well, it's a compliment because you created your own sound. I mean, it is hard to compare you. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
What's really great. So that answers part of my question, is because you from then you guys did a bunch of albums, and you guys had was it a breakup or just a break? But you also have done a lot of compositions and scores. And to me, I was like, oh, where'd that come from all of a sudden? Because you've been already doing that. Because I mean, to write a score or a composition and write for wind instruments and tubular bells, that's just not what an ordinary, rock guitarist has in their tool bag, in their cap. So I'm like, oh, that's interesting. So that was deeper in your reservoir early on.
Yeah, I studied that music, and I studied Bach. I played Bach and Villalobos and stuff in college, and I was always fascinated by it harmonically, and just the movement and the shapes and stuff, and then orchestral music. Beethoven is the first one that really got me because it's so immediate and so much like a Helmet riff. It's like dun 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 dun, and it's just that power and that passion, and so I always had it. I always enjoyed it, but I never, I kind of fantasized about getting into that stuff. And it wasn't until I moved to Los Angeles and I was driving around listening to KUSC, that great radio station they have at University of Southern California here, that I got turned on to some incredible music, including Ray Vaughan Williams and drawing a blank, Autumn Khachaturian, just stuff that wasn't Beethoven, Bach, Mozart, 20th century things, Samuel Barber. And I started hearing, and it's like, wow, there's something here harmonically that I find really beautiful and interesting. And it's steeped in classical tradition, meaning the Viennese tradition, but they've expanded upon it, kind of like Debussy saying, okay, I'm going to throw the sonata form out and I'm going to do this thing. And it's very, the electric guitar, Elliot Goldenthal, who I was really fortunate to do a bunch of movies for as a guitarist, he's like, your guitar is like a little mini orchestra. And the distorted electric guitar blends so well with strings. I mean, there's string instruments. There's a sonic thing. If you're playing a clean guitar, it's more percussive really, and it doesn't blend as well. It's nice to hear a guitar concerto with like Rodrigo's famous concerto di Diangue, but that the guitar doesn't. It's a different feel if you take a distorted electric guitar, and blend it with strings. They're one and the same. And I used strings on Helmet albums at that point, like had Jane Scarp and Tony play cello on Aftertaste, and I had Philip drawing a blank. I can't remember his last name on the last two Helmet albums. Philip Peterson play. So because I was always fascinated with that, and I've even back as far as Strap It On, I did sampling for the Sinatra, those voices, that drone that we do, what's the best for me, and the drone comes in, and Wharton was teaching me how to sample stuff. So I was always fascinated with those textures. I wasn't concerned, early on I was concerned with everything had to be performed live, and later I realized an album experience is completely different from a live experience. You don't have the immediacy, so you can do other things to create the interest and keep it exciting. But I'm still a newbie. I mean, I'm writing a piece for the Christian Brothers High School in Memphis, Tennessee. It's the oldest high school orchestra in the country. It's their 150th anniversary, and I've started 6 sketches and scrapped them all until I came up with 2 themes I really, really like a lot. So now I'm like, I have to figure this orchestration thing out. I wrote a piece for a high school in Atlanta, St. Pius.
That one's beautiful. It's on your website.
Is it?
Yeah, it's on your website. It's beautiful.
Oh, cool. Yeah. I mean, I was really proud of the kids because my thinking was, okay, they're kids, so they're learning. So I don't want something to be too rhythmically complex, like no Stravinsky rhythms or anything, but I can have someone, people playing the notes of a triad, and then I can put a flattened 2 in the bass but I didn't take into consideration kids also are still learning and honing their intonation. So sometimes some of the chords were a little complex, but I learned a lot and I had a great time. Mr. P, Chad P, Patsnick, the instructor, was really great, and I'm working with Patrick Bolton, actually. He's the teacher that brought me in for the Christian Brothers piece. And I did some audition pieces for a show that out of 150 composers, it was down to me. And then the network said, we want to go in a comedy direction. And I go, my instructions were tense and excitement and action. And, so I was like, I'm not a comedy guy, I just don't see
myself. Ending like one of those whistles at the end. You do like the beautiful piece and be like, wah. Yeah.
Like, yeah, so it was that but it was cool. I talked to the showrunner, the main producer guy, and he was really excited about it, and he really wants to do something with me. And he said, God, you would have been perfect for my show, The Mole, or whatever. But I'm just still learning and working at it, and it's really fun. And my manager, David Whitehead, who's also one of my best friends, wants me to do a orchestral thing. And the Helmet chords, as I've talked to my friend who's a composition film score teacher at USC here, he's like, these chords lend themselves to strings, to orchestral, layout. So I think because they're these open intervals, and it's going to sound really great. And then, as I say, I'm still kind of fumbling around. Elliot Goldenthal said, yeah, I got a great exercise for you. Take the tutti movements in Ravel's Rhapsody Espagnole and move everything up a minor third. And I'm like, okay, then, yeah, that'll take me about 10 years, but that's he's he studied with Aaron Copland and, you know, John Corleone. He's like, that's his life. He's an orchestral guy, you know, and I'm a rock guy at heart. I'm still like a rocker, you know.
They see the raw material and like literally go back to like the music can fit in different spots. And so like the difficulty and the simplicity, like in the high school one, to me is even higher because I can appreciate, because my daughter was on a bass back there. My daughter just graduated from, played bass all through high school. And so I was at jazz concerts in Boston, the competitions. So listening to high school musicians playing compositions and the challenges for them, and then hearing what you did was really fantastic, because that's a hard target. It's moving, you know, to get
it was
be
great.
difficult yet playable for that right audience.
And the challenge, one of the challenges is the odd orchestration, because you think about the guy be like, okay, we have 8 flutes, one trombone, you know, an alto, tenor sax, and you're like, you know. So and little things I've learned over the years, or you don't do a solo flute and a solo sax because the intonation will never be on. So you have to really work, get the winds and brass and the instrument families sorted. And so it's a challenge, but I like it. It's really fun. I think like I've been spoiled with Helmet, that it's been my baby for, you know, 30 plus years. I'm writing exactly what I want to hear. And if you get a job, you deal with that, you know, like if you're doing a film, if I'm doing a film, it's like it's all about the scene, that the you know, the action, the actor, the character, whatever. And that's was really great education, and it expanded we were talking about me doing all these different things and how they all feed each other. That's a great example of that. It made me a better songwriter for Helmet by scoring 7 or 8 movies. I had to learn stuff. So that's something, like if you always get to do exactly what you want, you know, I don't know. I mean, some of my friends that are rock stars, they just seem so bored with their lives and so bored with their bands. And they're doing it because they have, like, you know, a house in the hills and a guitar shaped pool they got to pay for. And a lot of them have lost their lust for what got them into music when they were 13, 14, 15 years old. And I never want to lose that, you know. That's why I play jazz every day. I'm looking at I Hear a Rhapsody, John Coltrane solo, Israel, Minor Swing, Django Reinhardt, Bill Evans' version of Israel, Over the Rainbow. You know, that's all my stand, and I'm kind of horsing around with Ted Green chords, as well as this guy Randy Levine, and I got a Joe Pass book, and then I'll put something in my phone and slow it down and try to figure things out. You know, it's fun. It's still really fun for me, and it's a challenge. I got online the other day before I had to leave in like 45 minutes, and this guy Michael Palmanzano, a great guitar teacher online, was always throwing himself into the fire. His fans were asking him to figure out a Steely Dan song, and so I kind of went along with him and figured it out. And I wanted to tell him, I'm like, it's a triad with the 2 in the bass. He's like, I don't hear a third. I don't hear a D sharp in there. It's B, but the B in the bass, I'm like, it's a sus chord. It's like you know, it's functioning as a sus chord. You know, and it's like, he got it eventually. But, you know, I had the benefit of being home with no pressure, not all my, you know, a bunch of fans watching do it live right now. I mean, he's amazing. This guy's amazing. But it's fun. It's fun doing that kind of stuff when you figure something out, like, you know, the little line in Ricky Don't Lose That Number, when they outline the, you know, B7 sharp 9 chord going to the chorus, and just it's how you learn. It's how you John Stoll, my great hero, mentor, jazz guitarist up in Portland, Oregon. He said, Paige, you listen actively and you will absorb stuff through osmosis. That means I'm not on my phone, you know, looking through, you know, looking at whatever boobs.com, and you know, I'm listening to music. I'm only listening to music. My phone, my visual stuff is put away. I'm just focusing on this.
Your mind is actively on that journey with it.
Go inside it, man. And people don't have I hear, you know, all kids don't have the attention span for a whole symphony anymore. I'm like, bullshit. Yes, they do. I'm seeing kids. I'm meeting more and more kids that they are passionate and ravenous, like you know, devouring music ravenously. They love it. And I saw a kid play giant steps. Granted, it was like this, you know, da, 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 you know, tempo, but he was 12, you know, giant steps, for crying out loud. That's you know, monster tune. And I love it, man. I love it. Kids are they have access to all this information and knowledge and everything on YouTube and on the internet, which is good and bad, because you still have to use your ears and figure stuff out, you know, on your own. I mean, I had my record, you know, and I had a cassette player, my in the SRO, the Welfare Hotel, and when I was in grad school, I had a little Sony Walkman, and I had my notebook here, and I'd be like, you know, you know, figuring the intervals out, writing it out, rhythm, okay, da 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 da, you know, da 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 da, ba da 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 da, one and a da, you know, that's, you know, and you got to do that, you know. I mean, that's, you know, I've transcribed John Coltrane and Wes Montgomery and Clifford Brown and Miles and Bill Evans, pianist, you know, and that stuff makes you, I don't know, I think it just contributes greatly to your musical fabric and your foundation, you know.
It's incredible, because one of the things you did early on is it, and you can correct my pronouncing, was it Branca Symphony? You were involved in that early on. You did like some guitar work.
Glenn Branca.
Yeah, Branca. Thank you. Sorry, I'm not that.
Glenn's he pronounced his name Branca. I used to say Branca, but he always said Branca. You know, so I say Glenn Branca. Yeah,
look, I'm giving him props online, so he'll take what he gets.
Yeah, well, he passed.
See that?
Huge influence on me, man. That guy was the real deal. He was so passionate, man, and he was so creative and so just a whole new world, right? And I mean, I played on Symphony No. 6. I'm on that recording, and
it's beautiful. So people that haven't heard, I just want to say, I'm sorry to step on you. We're talking. People check out these things we're talking about, because it's awesome. I mean, I just discovered this part for this reference we're talking about now, but I was like, oh, it's a rabbit hole for me that I gotta bookmark and put aside, because there's more to that journey.
I hope somebody like John Myers, who was Glenn's conductor, right-hand man in Glenn's later years, somebody you know, performs Glenn's music live, like puts an ensemble together. And I ended up getting to play on the Symphony for 100 electric guitars here at Disney Hall in LA, where the LA Phil plays. And it was amazing. It was an amazing experience. And you know, I had seen the premiere at the Twin Towers, like the year of the attacks. It was that summer. And they did 100 electric guitars, and everybody's like, why aren't you here? Why didn't you play? It's like, I was on the road. I couldn't. And I just got home in time to see the show. And then years later, he had reworked. And when we got to Los Angeles, he said, I don't know if he was lying to us, but this was the best performance of the piece that I've had anywhere in the world. Stands to reason, in LA, there's a lot of really talented musicians. For example, Mike Watt, one of my punk rock heroes and a good buddy of mine.
Mike Watt.
He was in the bass section, you know, and so he's such a responsible, passionate, hardworking musician. You know, he got sectionals together. He got the bass players together and said, okay, guys, we're going to work on this outside of the group. And that's the kind of guy he is, you know. So it was a really good ensemble, and it was an amazing experience, man. Amazing.
When was that when you did that? Like, how old were you when you did that one? Because that was a while back.
Oh gosh, I already lived in LA, so I would say it was 10 years ago, maybe. Is my guess, something like that. Okay. Yeah.
Because those
past years ago.
Yeah. That's really good. And then what's really interesting is I love the fact that, like I said, you doing soundtracks, you're doing high school, you're doing so much different stuff. But this is going to lead to what you're doing now. You have a new collaboration, new-ish, in the COVID apocalypse, 2020. Is you do like You Really Got Me? You do a whole album. Your collaboration
with,
you do?
The Malumbo stuff.
Malumbo is how you say it.
Yeah. It's my old friend Rob Ray. I was in his band in Brooklyn in the 80s before I formed Helmet, before I finished grad school. And we were a pop band basically, but like we're writing weird like Pink Floyd inspired pop songs, and it was fun, but it wasn't my 100% my cup of tea. I knew I had to do my own thing. But we had these sort of parallel universe. When I formed Helmet, he formed Malumbo, and I would go see him play, and I really enjoyed it. It was like world music, but with some crazy improv. And samples. He's big on samples and stuff. He's not himself necessarily a virtuoso improviser, but he's got a great compositional mind. And so I just enjoyed what he was doing. And I said, I want to do something with you. And so we ended up working on this off and on. I'd be in New York for 2 days. I'd go into the studio for a day. Then I would kind of do stuff in my home studio. And we got an album out of it. And I just played on a couple of tracks they did. It's kind of run its course for me because it's a lot of work for no money. And I do
welcome to the internet.
Yeah, I do have to make a living, and it's I mean, I'm talking like if I had a jazz gig and I was getting $50, okay, I can place, I know at least 100 jazz standards memorized, maybe more. And so that's not as much work, you know, but this is like, these arrangements they're modulating, and there's all these parts, and it's very, very dense. It's extremely dense. So also like picking parts out. So, but I like it. I enjoy it. But I just kind of came to a crossroads, and I was in New York for the premiere of the album, Malumbo and Page Hamilton album, in March when the pandemic hit. And I was there for about a week, and we were about to start rehearsals, and I panicked, and I said, this is going to get bad. I'm going home. I didn't want to get stuck out there. So they canceled the show. They rightly canceled the show. I talked to my friend David Torn, a great composer and guitarist. He said, Paige, this is really dangerous. I'm not going to do. He was going to open up for us. I'm not doing this because he has health issues. So I realized it was serious, and here we are.
Yeah,
18 months later, still not playing shows. So it's amazing. You know, it's crazy. It's been very intense.
Well, it is an interesting piece, and that is also up on your website. So it's interesting. You do look the Kinks song, actually. You really have to listen to it to catch it.
Yeah.
It's very eclectic.
Rob and I saw the Kinks together in 1986, maybe. I saw the Kinks 3 times. Once at Jones Beach, once on the pier on the west side, and once at the Beacon Theater. Actually, I think we went to all of them together, maybe. Or maybe I went with Sally to one of them. Anyway, yeah, one of our favorite bands. So we have that in common, and we both love the Kinks and Blue Oyster Cult. So we did, our little cover 7-inch box set. We did Blue Oyster Cult, the Beatles, of course, David Bowie, and Wire. So kind of very, a variety.
And that's the one coming out, right? That just came out.
Yeah, that came out. It's only for fans. It's only on the. I think David, manager, said it's just for fans on the website, or say it's a special, limited, very, very limited thing. But we're going to go out and play the songs live, so much to the, I think, chagrin of my band. They're like, this Wire song's hard because it's like one chord, and you got to know where to go up and where to go down and where to add the tension chord, and it's hard in that way, not in a. And then the Bowie song's quite complex because he wrote the song. He had all the young dudes. The tape was on backwards in the studio, and so Bowie. So Move On from one of my 3 favorite Bowie albums is Lodger. That song Move On is the chord changes backwards to all the young dudes, and all that is like his vocals backwards. So me figuring that out, the syllables, the sonic thing was very difficult. And then I have teach my band. I was like, no, it's they're gonna be like, screw you, Paige. But it'll be cool.
And it's a fitting tribute though, because you did get to play with him, which is probably one of the most awesome things in the world. I mean,
one of the highlights of my life, no doubt. He was a gentleman and a amazing human being, no question about it, man.
It's just a gift you got to play with him. So we're just going to wrap up a few things, because you got a couple of things out there I want to talk about. You guys have a ring. One ring to rule them all.
It's funny. My manager's son is in college in Manchester, England. My manager's from England, and his son is in college over there. And I took him out to lunch when we played Manchester. And he's a great kid, and he's designing jewelry. Well, coincidentally, back in the day, I used to wear a ring on a cord around my neck with my ex-wife's name on it. And it got ripped off when I like an idiot stage dove at Roseland Ballroom. And, they shredded my shirt. I had claw marks, blood under my pits and armpits and chest, and they ripped until they tore it off. So I lost it. And I just always thought it was cool. And so he did this ring thing on a necklace, and it's beautiful. The kid's really talented. So I was like, that's kind of different, you know?
Yeah, it's cool. It's really nice. I'm going to step back from though. Saying it was your ex-wife and the ring got torn off your neck and you were all attacked and everything. Kind of feels like it was a warning for you. It's like right out there in front of you.
Yeah.
It's very symbolic. Just put that out there for you.
Some foreshadowing there for sure. Yeah.
Spoiler alert for you.
Yeah. Sadly, we've lost touch. We had a falling out after the divorce, and great, really beautiful, really intelligent, great person. But we just couldn't play nice.
Once you've been married, you can make those jokes. So you got to make that joke, you know, just
regardless
of the relationship. Not a dick towards them. It's an accident. It's just a joke, man.
I have zero ill will towards her whatsoever. I did for a while, but I just don't. You know, it's like she's happily married and has kids, and she's doing well. So I'm happy for her. You know,
it's good. You still get to make those jokes. You earned it. You're in those stripes.
Yeah, for sure.
You're in the troops. So a couple of things you got going. So you took the box set. I wrote a couple of things down. I want to make sure we talk about these few things. The beer,
the helmet beer. Yeah, the helmet lager. It's I got a can. We had a couple of options. They were really cool about it. I said, what do you like? And I said, well, I like a lager. I don't do IPAs. And this particular brewery, Alosta, doesn't do IPAs. So here's one that I've consumed already, but that's the Betty cover. And we did the Betty Blue, I call it. Lowercase logo. It's really nice. This was the other option that they wanted to consider, the meantime looking vibe. But I just thought the Betty one was, just looked cooler. And it's
usually
great.
The Betty's prettier and it's nicer, but the meantime is the album that people would probably gravitate towards us.
Depends on what part of the world. Like when Betty came out, that exploded for us in Europe and Australia. That's where we really kind of, peaked. And meantime, I think they were. It was like one notch above Strapping On somehow. But the meantime's the one in the U.S. that everybody discovered us through. So. So that's cool. Yeah, those guys are great. We have the live, that Australia show you were talking about. We did that Big Day Out festival, which is sadly no longer in Melbourne. And I picked 7 songs that I could stomach from that, and we mixed them. Toshi Kasai, our good friend.
This is the worst selling right there that I could.
Yeah, really. It's like these were okay. These didn't make me sick.
Come on, Paige. Put a little more oomph into it.
we were tearing it up. John and Henry and I were really close back then, and Peter was doing his own thing because he's from Australia, so he's seeing family a lot, and he was trying to reel it in, and he was trying to be good Peter, and I'm like, you're not fooling us. The three of us were just, we had a steady flow of an IV of Cooper's Ale, and we were just running around on the Bondi Beach with topless girls, swimming. It was just gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. So the shows were a little rough, but the heavier tracks turned out really great because my voice was so gruff from staying up all night every night and drinking. So it's cool. I really wanted to get it out there. It's for fans. And then the CB show was before Strapping On came out, so it was like year 0 basically. I'm sure.
Wow.
Yeah, and we had was a great photographer that was like on helmet from day one, and Kirk from Flipside magazine. I managed to track him down, and we got photos from him that were fantastic. And it's just cool, our dear friend in Melbourne, Australia, Richard De Silva, who does all our artwork now. The lion's share of our artwork, he put the artwork together with Kirk's pictures, and really. Like talented guy. His band is one of the bands I have a track from to produce that I'm really far behind on. But that's like CB show is really cool. It was a similar thing. There were lyrics to Bad Mood from the Strapping On album over completely different music. And so I was like, God, I forgot I had done that. So we did. That turned into an intro on the album, and it was just this high energy, cool show. The band, we had this kind of explosive thing going. We were also, everybody in the band was so intense in a weird way. And I think the music just was right for that ensemble, and it's really, so it's fun. I'm proud of it. I'm proud of it, but it's not, I mean, it's, as a 61-year-old now and 33 years or whatever into it, I'm a much, better singer and guitar player and writer.
It's a yearbook picture.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's,
no one's expected
cool.
to be the same guy back then. It's a moment of memories, and it's a timestamp,
Yeah, I love it. It's cool, man. The artwork is great, and the shows were great. There was something just really fun about them, so
it was so great. It's great for the bands, like the linear journey of a band, especially for fans, is such a treat.
Yeah, no doubt. Definitely.
Two other things I want to talk about. You guitar pedal, the Protone.
Oh yes, yeah, the Page Hamilton Distortion. Yeah, and we did a quote unquote reissue in the Magenta to honor because we reissued. We did a very limited run, only 40 guitars of the PH Magenta Sig model guitar from ESP. It's an LTD model. And Dennis at Protone got this great idea. It's like, I'm trying to do a pedal to go with that. I'm like, I'd love it. And it sounds incredible. Actually, I gave one to each of my bandmates and to a few of my dear friends. And my bass player loves it. He uses it on his pedal board now. It's perfect for bass too. So Dennis is really talented, a really good guy. And that's, it's Protone. I don't know if it's protone.com or what it is, but it's on, Protone. It's easy, easy to remember.
It's linked off your website too, I believe. All the stuff I'm talking about is actually a page.
Cool.
But all this is on your website though, anyhow, right? Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, Sean. Yeah. You told me about this.
On my website every day.
Right. Somebody is. It's a really great website too. It's very informative. So we just scratched the surface of stuff. I mean, you got a lot going on. So hopefully people that aren't aware of all the levels of you, cool. You got layers. You're like an onion or a Shrek. You got these layers to you that people aren't aware of. It's
well. I will thank my manager and his family, because his son and his wife and his daughter all help. It's like a family affair. They're all just amazing. His wife is a really great singer, songwriter from Hugo Largo. We work with Han Rowe, who's a guy I got to work with, a great sample guy, guitarist, keyboardist, really creative, amazing, and it's a really beautiful band. And there's this talented artist that she just understands where I'm coming from, and I have trust everything they do implicitly.
You tell them good job.
Yeah, I will.
The write-ups on it of the descriptions of you are very succinct. It's nice.
Yeah, they won't put any goofy stuff out there like, hey, dudes and ladies, our record drops, it's like, I don't talk like that. Yeah.
Right. And it's like the little brief segments of talks about some of the other stuff you've done, and the other videos are in there. It's like the orchestration stuff is in there. All this stuff is in there for reference. So it's really great. It shows a lot of you.
Cool.
Last thing I want to talk about is your guitar lessons.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
That?
My dear friend Tracy Wiedemann, who is a tour manager extraordinaire for everyone from Ziggy Marley to Manson to REO Speedwagon and Heart, and she's worked with every band, been at it for a million years. We were sitting around. She's in Vegas, and I was like, I've been thinking about, people have been asking me about guitar lessons for years and years and years, and I've never had the time, and I got a lot of time now. And so I said, would you help me kind of put the little app thing together and administer it so I don't have to, so I don't screw things up. And she did a really nice job. And so I have students all over the world. I'm becoming friends with a couple of them, a guy in Portland I love, Abe, a guy in England, Nick, who's a just really great guy, creative, a guy named Todd, another guy named Joe, this kid Bo, and I say kid, they're in their 30s, all these guys, but I call them kids, and his band. So through the lessons, a couple of guys said, what I really want is for you to produce a track for us. So I produced a Bo's band, Basement from Boise. I produced a band from Toulouse, South France. I'm drawing a blank on the name now. Fuck.
Okay.
We're gonna post a band in New York called For the Fork. some guys in Chicago. I kind of guided them. There was a lesson, but I ended up doing with both guys, the drummer and the guitarist. They were just learning how to record. Can you help us learn how to record? What mics do we use? What interfaces? What are we doing? I'm like, yeah, I love it. And it's
That's awesome.
It's been really fun, man. And it also
sounds inspiring for you. Like it re-inspires, like ignites the fire.
It helped me focus on my own work. In fact, I did these. I have these books where I've compiled all this, information, like scales and chords and
nice.
And stuff, and it's just been really fun, man. I always loved teaching anyway. Like I always did the rock camp, and then School of Rock approached me at the beginning of the pandemic, and so I did an interview with their St. Louis school, and then they said, would you do one with the National School of Rock? And I said, that was really great. Would you do a class? And then I worked with the All-Star kids, the 7 All-Star songwriters. It's just really fun. I love it. I love sharing. John Stoll, like, as I mentioned, my Guitar Hero mentor, told me, God, 10 or 15 years ago, you do so much in music. You have so many different skills, and it's like you need to be sharing. And he's like Buddha. He's like my Zen guide. Because he's so humble and so and he's genius, but he's humble and beautiful, and plays jazz, and he's a world-class improviser and human being. And he said, you have to start sharing this stuff with people. And I'm like, okay, John says that, then I do. He's right. He's absolutely right. And I love it. And from a selfish standpoint, as I said, it has inspired me as well. So if you're telling somebody how to write a song, you better know how to write a song. So.
The website that Paige is clearly a big part of. You're busy creating. It's great that you have a team that supports you, because if you're an artist and you're not doing that part, someone needs to do that. And it's you can feel there's love in that site, because it's very, very nice. It's very intuitive. It doesn't overspeak. It doesn't oversell. It's available.
Cool. So, yeah, I work with smart, creative people. That's the key.
And the goal is that a good manager lets you do your thing, and they take care of the other stuff. So that's awesome. I want to thank you. This has been a pleasure
for having me. Really cool show.
Thank you. And hopefully we'll talk again. Okay. I want to
thank
you. Have a good day and rest. Okay.
All right. Thanks.
Okay.